Hello everyone, my name's Scott Weir and I have the kind of distinct pleasure of being the project manager for the East Kootenay Columbia Community Investment Co-op and the West Kootenay Boundary Community Investment Co-op. I appreciate you letting me get to briefly speak tonight. I'm hoping to just kind of do a little update on kind of where we've gone over the last year and inviting you to kind of be a part of it as well. So I just want to quickly touch on like why community investment co-ops have become so popular in BC. And I think a big part of it is that it really does help to bridge that gap between local investors and local businesses. A lot of times it can be much easier to be able to invest in kind of mutual funds and things that ultimately take our money and kind of often the money often ends up benefiting kind of urban environments and urban settings. Whereas in reality, we'd like our money to be able to kind of support our local communities. And that's really where community investment co-ops come in. They can be a cost-effective, community-owned and controlled impact fund in a way. And as we've seen with Creston, as we've seen with a number of others throughout the province, they can successfully finance some really cool projects. Everything from locally owned small business development, technology, community economic development projects, affordable housing, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, the list goes on. Some of the things that have kind of allowed this to succeed is that there are certain exemptions that make it fairly cost effective for us to set these up. And then I also think that there's just a certain component of people like to be able to have control over their money. And that's where the kind of one member, one vote, democratic and locally owned and controlled principles of the co-op really contribute to this well. Plus, we have the benefit of being able to be fairly flexible in our financing, which is great because every business and every project is different, and being able to have some flexibility with that really helps to contribute with that. Plus, we've, I think, done a pretty good job of working well and partnering with a lot of the kind of existing financing structures that exist, like community futures and the credit unions. Like with our two co-ops, we are partnered with kind of the 5 or whatever it is community futures throughout the region, as well as we have our money in the credit union system as well, just helping to kind of support each other and make sure that we're doing what's best for the communities and entrepreneurs. So this all kind of started out of a thing called the Mobilizing Local Capital Initiative. So in kind of the beginning of 2018, a gentleman by the name of Eden Yesh kind of led up this initiative. I was able to travel around the East and West Kootenays, basically presenting to communities and gauging if there was interest in starting an investment co-op. And initially the kind of thought was, oh yeah, maybe there'll be 1 or 2 communities that are interested in this, and we'll be able to identify who's the most interested and we'll start one there. But in reality, and I think this kind of shows the sort of like pent-up demand for it as well, we had a lot of people show up in a lot of different communities, and so it really ended up making sense for us to start 2 regional investment co-ops instead. So now we have the East Kootenay Columbia Community Investment Co-op and the West Kootenay Boundary Community Investment Co-op. And each of those co-ops has representation from across the region on its board, as well as sub-regional investment committees that kind of oversee the disbursement, like the application, review, and disbursement of funds to projects in kind of a smaller regional setting. So it was really cool to see just how much kind of involvement we had over that period. And that's around the time that I got involved too. I got involved at kind of the beginning of last year and was involved with sort of all of the setup and planning stages. And then at the beginning of this year was when we really kind of rubber hit the road in a way, and we got the organizations legally set up, and we were able to, we brought in, I think we had like just over 200 members across the 2 co-ops to start. And we've basically built up our board and committees since then. So now really where we're at is we're at a stage where we have some money in the programs, we have everything kind of set up, and now we are kind of in sort of this higher level development phase. Just prior to going to do another capital raise and start accepting applications. So I'll say a few words on that in a moment here, but just quickly, so on either of the co-ops, but I'll speak specifically to the East Kootenay Columbia right now. Retail investors can put in up to $5,000 over the course of their life, and there is advocacy going on right now to have that raised, but it could be years and it may never happen, but we're hopeful. I think the government's relatively supportive of increasing this, and they see the benefits of it. If you're a accredited investor, then there aren't any limits on that, and that's generally someone that has X amount of wealth or X amount of assets, and yeah, basically can contribute quite a bit of funds without it being problematic to them. So regional members elect a board, and then they're supported by a sub-regional investment committees. They look to fund local businesses and projects that demonstrate economic, social, environmental, or community benefits. So we're really looking for kind of that triple bottom line there. And we are partnered with community future offices throughout both Kootenays. And really what this does is that they help us to do the due diligence, which is great. So it means that as we have kind of board turnover over time and stuff, we have a certain amount of kind of professional tie-in that allows us to keep some consistency in the review of our applications, or at least in the information that's provided to our boards and stuff. So that's really nice. We have the ability to do them without community futures, but it's really nice to be able to do it with them, because then also too, if we want to lend, say, $40,000 and community futures wants to lend some, there's just kind of one application process, and it just makes it easier for everyone. And then, as I said, we kind of leverage those additional financing options. So through the credit union, CBT, and the Community Futures Development Corporation. So a lot of good partnerships there that I think will help it to succeed over time. We're also looking to bring in kind of business development and support as part of our initiative. And really what we mean by that is we have a fairly large membership base that will only grow over time. And in that membership base, we probably have a lot of skilled and qualified people, if our boards are any example of that, as is probably our committees. So we think that we can probably pull on those, as well as kind of our wider partnerships that are tied to the organization, to bring in a lot of great knowledge and expertise and skills that could look to support these businesses. And that kind of would create almost like a local mentorship system in a way. We also have the ability to do flexible financing options, which is great. So we could do equity investments. We largely will probably focus on loan deals for the time being, but we'll kind of see. We have that flexibility. And then there's kind of that, I guess something that I saw from the previous program that I used to run, which was kind of like a regional crowd lending platform, was that we really saw that as as the co-ops or as the organizations lent to different small businesses and community projects, we saw that there's a lot of support from the people that put in their money to the businesses that were being invested in. Because ultimately, if the co-op thought it was cool and a good idea, a lot of times that means that the members are going to be pretty excited about it as well. And yeah, you just kind of create a local advocacy network in a way. So a couple of things I want to quickly mention. If you are interested in becoming a member of the East Kootenay Columbia Community Investment Co-op, you're welcome to do so. It's a great way to be able to put in additional funds beyond what you've been able to put in with Creston, because we're all kind of limited to a certain amount of funds being able to put in. And we'd just love to have some of your expertise and experience. It'd be great to have you in it. You can sign up online and kind of get all the information you need there. And you can also reach out to me with any questions that you have. Beyond that, I want to talk a little bit just briefly about the work that we're doing on a larger perspective that we think will be really beneficial to community investment co-ops generally in the province and in Canada at large. We've received some grant money recently to be able to work on what we call the Startup Guide. And really what this is going to be a series of resources that really break down the process of starting and running a community investment co-op to really make it a lot easier for communities to be able to establish them and to be able to run them successfully moving forward. We really hope that along with the second piece, which I'll speak about briefly in a moment, will help this to kind of very quickly scale across the province and make it so that we have just all of these little hubs of community investment in our local economies, which could be huge. So that second piece that I was referring to is a software piece that we're working on. Now, really what this is this allows any co-op to be able to use this software, and through that, be able to have their members purchase membership shares, redeem membership shares, put investment through it, find out information, communicate with their members. A lot of the different admin tasks that currently we often have our volunteers do, this basically helps to minimize that. Because as we all probably know, our margins are pretty small in with community investment co-ops, and that's part of what makes them great. But it does also present certain challenges in being able to afford, at the size that we are, afford staffing and stuff like that. That makes it a little easier. So we're hoping with the development of this software, this would just make it a lot easier for having this purpose-built application. It would make it a lot easier for us to be able to scale, and just make it a lot easier for all of the existing co-ops to be able to run. So we'll have more information on that over time, but if you want, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that'll help to keep you updated. So I really appreciate the time today. Sorry it was a bit rambly. It's always a little challenging doing a presentation when you don't have physical people in front of you, but I do appreciate your time. So thank you very much, everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me through the website. Have a great evening.